This week's Parsha, we have the Haftorah of the Gechazai, the Eved of Elisha, and when he became a Metzora, he and his sons, and they were in Shomron. They were outside of the city, and interesting discussion takes place about why they were outside the city, because of the halachic requirement to be outside of a city is if the city was a walled city from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. Shomron, after the Malchus had split, and Yehuda was in the south and Shomron was in the north, and the Yerovam had taken them. First, there was a split with there was Rehovam and then Yerovam, and Yerovam then created an alternative to Yerushalayim, tried to attract people, and there were all kinds of ingenious methods that he used to create the impression of miraculous endorsement and enfranchisement for his calves, the Avodah Zorah, the Agolim that he was using. One description is that he suspended them with the Tiferes Sion rings. He suspended them with magnets pulling from either side, so it created the illusion that they were suspended in the air miraculously. The Ben Yoda says that they were pulled from the ceiling, a magnet, but whichever way, he was creating this kind of an illusion. So Rabbi Kivega brings that he was asked, and there are those that say it was the Chassam Sefer that asked him, that why, if he was trying to simulate and emulate the criteria of Yerushalayim in this scheme, why did he have them? Later was Achov that was being dealt with, that Elisha was trying to get Klal Yisrael to do tshuva, and there was a famine, and Achov's position was one of being Roidef, strange kinds of contradictions, because he had a certain covered a certain sense of honor and to the Sefer Torah, to Sifrei Torah that we find, but as far as the Nevi'im are concerned, he pursued them relentlessly and mercilessly, and of course his Zevel was even more. In this sequence that's given, where they're outside the Metzoraim, then there's been this Masoret that was passed down to Achov, that he is competing with Yerushalayim. So he's trying to create this kind of an illusion that it has the same halachic criteria. So in fact, he has them in a walled city outside the even though Shomron wasn't a walled city necessarily. Rabbi Kivega says that we have a source in the Targum that when Omri had purchased the place where the mountain where they were going to create this new temple, he had in fact purchased it had once been a walled city. That's Rabbi Kivega's mahalach. Reb Meir Simcha goes with that it was all part of the ruse to create a competitive sense of a religion that is uh, competing with Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is in the south, Shomron is in the north, and therefore he emulated and simulated all of the norms, and therefore he had the Metzora outside the city as well. Why was he a Metzora? He was a Metzora because in when Naaman had come, the foreign Sar Tzava, the foreign commander in chief, he had been a Metzora. He had been told by a Jewish slave girl that that was captured that there's an Elisha and that this Elisha can do miracles, and perhaps that could cure his being a Metzora. And we're not going to translate, we don't translate Metzora as being a leper. It's some kind of a miraculous kind of a disease which comes as a result of certain transgressions, violations, and there are criteria for it. It's similar in its description to what we know as leprosy, but in fact it's not that. There's a diyun that some want to say that for the non-Jew, when the non-Jew had it, Rav Schwab talks about that it was in fact the leprosy as leprosy, not as the miraculous disease which afflicts the Jew as a result of certain transgressions and afflicts his body, afflicts his home, usually starting with the home and then trying to promote, stimulate, provoke tshuva. I'll call upon him. The Gehazi had violated Elisha's instructions that Elisha did not want to take compensation from Naaman after the miracle takes place. And Gehazi went after him. Elisha turns down the gift, and then Gehazi and his helpers, they go after Naaman, and he does collect from him, and in trying to make it very clever that he's doing it with the sanction of Elisha, who was allowing him to do this, which in fact was a lie. And so there's a Chillul Hashem that comes out of this. And this Chillul Hashem results in Elisha pushing him away, that rejecting Gehazi and saying that the tzaras that was afflicting Naaman, that he was cured of when he took my instructions, and he was tevel, he dipped in the Yarden, however reluctantly, but he did it eventually. and then he's cured miraculously. In fact, that now that you created a Chil Hashem instead of what could have been a Kiddush Hashem, now you created a Chil Hashem out of this by taking this payment for it, then that Mitzaras is going to afflict you, and that's why Gehazi and his sons are outside of the city in Shomron. That would have been the case in Yerushalayim, that they had to stay outside the city. Now, Rabbi Simcha, he follows I saw they brought the Tony de Beliyahu that also indicates that the gematria of Shomron is the same gematria as Yerushalayim. It was a political statement to try and create this competitive kind of an environment. One interesting question that I remember Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal spoke about was, we find that Naaman himself became a ger tzedek. Excuse me, a ger toshav. A ger toshav. He became a ger toshav, Naaman, but we don't find that any of he came with a whole army. Nobody that came with him became a Baal Tshuva. Why isn't it that they didn't respond? So Rav Weinberg had a mahalach Zatzal that it happened to him. Since it happened to him, that like Eov says, that there's that which you personally experience has an impact on you at times that for others that just view it from a distance, it isn't existentially taking place within the makeup of their emotions and intellect. It's not happening to them. Okay, I'll call upon him. So Gehazi is outside the city, and then there's the foreign armies. Sancheiriv attacked, and the city is under siege, and there's no food, and they're starving inside the city. And Gehazi says to the others that are with him in this quarantine outside the city, he says, let's go look for food. We're starving also. They're outside the city, outside the wall, and they go look for food, and they stumble across the enemy encampment that has been miraculously frightened and sent away by providential guidance. Noises, frightening, and they leave everything. They leave their food, they leave their clothes, and they run away. There's food there, so firstly they take some food, but then there's a moment of conscience, and Gehazi says, well, let's go tell the king. He can't come into the city, but they have it. There's a place where where the king can come out to speak to him. That there's something with a shelter that was prepared, again simulating what it was in Yerushalayim, that the Metzoraim that had to be outside the city could be under some kind of shelter from the sun, from the rain. And they explain what has happened, and the food is discovered, and the food is and it's a miraculous salvation for Klal Yisrael. Now, before this had happened, Elisha had been in the city. He was urging tshuva, and he urged that and predicted that soon there's going to be the availability of inexpensive food, the price is going to come down, and the clerk who was in charge of that was cynical and dismissed it and mocked derisively at everything that Elisha said. So Elisha said, "You won't participate in this great find." So in fact, later, when the food is discovered and the food is brought there, then he's trampled. He doesn't get to eat from it because of his mocking derision of the words of the Navi. The Gemara in Sanhedrin quotes the interchange where the spokesman, Gvia ben Psisa, was being challenged about, spokesman for the Torah community, was being challenged about Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. How is it possible, such a thing? So Gvia ben Psisa asked the Chachomim, let me go to debate, let me be the spokesman to debate these naysayers, these heretics, because it's the better of the alternatives. Because in case I don't succeed, so we'll say, listen, it was only me, Gvia ben Psisa, it wasn't the top rank of Talmidei Chachomim. And if I do succeed, I succeed. So he puts forth the following case. He puts forth the case that a body that was once alive, and now it hasn't disappeared, this body. It didn't go away. The body now is just been dismembered, dismantled. There's an erosion. It's transferred from one state to another, the physical existence, but it's there. There's something there. It has gone through some kind of a metamorphosis, if you will, an opposite a reverse metamorphosis in disintegrating. But it's there. There's some remnants of those bones and that reality. So what is easier, for something that was never there to come into existence, and the inception of conception, right from the joining of the seed of the male to the ovum, that's as close as one can get in this world to something from nothing, to yesh me'ayin. Whereas the reassembling of the pieces of the disintegrated puzzle to make it go again, now reconstruct that, is closer to yesh me'yesh, much closer to yesh me'yesh. So that it's a kal v'chomer, that said Gvia ben Psisa. When the Gemara wants to cite that the Ribboni Shalom works midah keneged midah, measure for measure, with this world, that's poetic justice, we would say, that sometimes it's more evident, but there is an essential kind of a measure for measure, which then allows us to see the hashgacha. So the Gemara cites these two instances. One is that the case, the argument of Tchias HaMesim, and that because then these heretics are told, but you won't participate in Tchias HaMesim because you don't believe in it. Those who understand this argument of Tchias HaMesim, that there'll be a resurrection of the dead because the pieces are here. All the given, the raw material is here. It has to now just be reassembled, reconstructed, reconstituted. Similarly, that case is cited of Mida Keneged Mida, where that clerk, that pakid, that administrator, who was heretical, cynical about the words of the Navi, it was predicted by the Navi, you won't get to participate because Mida Keneged Mida. The Rameh Simcha quotes there a Reb Sadia Gaon. Reb Sadia Gaon says that just like only the Rebbeinu Shalom can make creation and ex nihilo, something from nothing, yesh me'ayin. Similarly, only the Rebbeinu Shalom can make nothing from something. We, human beings, can rearrange the status, the condition. We can go from a gas to a liquid to a solid. We can go back around again, but it doesn't go away. As we've mentioned in the past, that also has to do with the idea that that nothing in the Bria is here for naught. It's here to be captured, to be harnessed, to be utilized, and nuclear waste. What to do with material that we haven't found a medium of even dismantling it, disintegrating it in a user-friendly way, in a way that is comfortable for the environment. That's a problem. Plastics, etc. So the two instances, this case, the food, when that administrator was being cynical and when the Novi, Elisha, predicted it's going to be available at an inexpensive price, accessible to all purchasers, and he was heretical, cynical. The food was there, but we didn't know where it was. It had to be found. It had to be discovered and accessed. Many years ago, I was at the Hillel House in Harvard, and the students challenged me about a number of things, but one of them was the Malthusian problem, which every once in a while surfaces, and produces just is reproduced arithmetically in the creation of the universe. At the time, that it's a question of administration, of application, distribution, right? Ideally and theoretically, as so many of us have talked about. There was a fellow that during the Dust Bowl in the United States, and there was a famine, dedicated himself to genetically re-engineering wheat. And then later he saved Central American, South American countries from starvation by planting wheat that was capable of producing 100 times more in 1/10 of the amount of land. He won a Nobel Prize. How many technological innovations have been introduced by the creative, imaginative genius dedicated to making it happen? Later, I found there was a book that written on this exact thesis called The Ultimate Resource by a Jew named Julian Simon, who actually establishes that it's bunk. It's a question of distribution. The Malthusian problem is a misrepresentation, and that in fact that it's a question of distribution, and that technologically we are now producing more food. Is it being distributed properly? No. But that's a human problem. In another way, the psychology and the morality of people are still subject to the Yetzer Hara and the inclination to self-serve, only to self-serve. And so the Klal Yisrael and Am Yisrael, in their pursuit of the good, the imaginative, the creative, are a kind of a dedicated intellectual, spiritual commando corps that have to uncover, discover, and bring to the world. It's not accidental that so many Jews, so often, so consistently, have an obsession and a passion, even the secular Jew, for Tikkun Olam, because there is a space that was dedicated in their souls at Sinai. And that space that's dedicated, even when it's seemingly emptied, it never gets emptied. That space has to be filled with some kind of alternative ideology. We've touched on this idea from a lot of different angles, but surely it's an extension of an application of what Reb Saadia Gaon said, that we don't make it go away. We can just reorient it. And so we daven, we learn, we hope for the privilege, for the actual participation in Klal Yisrael's mission statement of being an all agoyim and bringing that genuine tikkun olam, not partial, not misconstrued, not disorganized, but bringing it to the world in a way that will be digestible, palatable, and quote Shemayim will once again be within our vision, reach, and we should see Yeshua's refuahs for all. Kol Tuv.